See if you guys are afraid to admit it. But I am afraid to admit that I am a wrestling fan in public. Is that bad?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Womp womp. What's up, Duckers? We are here and we are ready to get into it for our August show with WWF in your house, Canadian Stampede, rocking the cowboy hat because I didn't know there were cowboys in Canada, but apparently there are. So we're going to rock the cowboy hat for a little bit. But first thing first, let's go ahead and introduce my co-host here. Same guys you know every week. We got over here on my side, we got Lathan Hall getting at it, getting ready to go. And then down here underneath me, we got Mr. Too Hard, Too Fast, Mr. Jorge Empanada himself, George.
I'm rocking and clocking.
I need a cowboy hat. I'm ready.
Hey.
I don't even know what to do with this.
Do this. Fuck it.
It goes with it for the Undertaker.
It
Yeah,
does.
I mean, he's one of
It
the
actually
matches, so-
does. It's not bad. But guys, welcome to the August pay-per-view review. This is episode number 5 already.
The Cinco.
That's right. Spring Stampede.
Drinko.
Cinco. Let's
We'll hit you with the kitchen Cinco. Too much?
Yes,
I'm
Cinco.
sorry.
So George is drinking tequila, if anybody couldn't tell by how he's. So let's.
Am I?
let's-
YouTube, I'm drinking water, YouTube.
Want to do a couple of things first. So SummerSlam predictions, which were the SummerSlam was really good. I really had high hopes for it, and it actually didn't disappoint. So overall, with Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, Lathan is leading the pack at 10 of 14. We got me up next at 9 of 14. We got George, who, not on equal ground. He didn't predict Money in the Bank, so he's at 4 and 7. Our guest picker, Brian Dozier, he went 2 and 7. So for September, which I believe is what pay-per-view is
Payback.
it? Payback.
It's payback. Yeah.
Payback in September. We're going to have another guest picker on that, which I've already set up. It will be my neighbor. His name is David, and he is not a wrestling fan and never has been a wrestling fan. So it'll be interesting to see if he can improve on Brian's picks. So, guys, we're getting into Canadian Stampede, which took place in 1997. It was an in-your-house pay-per-view. So it was one of the smaller events back then. I had kind of forgotten how they used to have the pay-per-views put out. They had the big events, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, and then they had the In Your House, which were smaller events. And so it kind of surprised me just how the time wasn't really that long. I was expecting a 3-hour pay-per-view. The pay-per-view itself without commercials came in at like an hour and 48 minutes, which I'm cool with because they packed a lot of shit in there and it was really good. Guys, what'd y'all think?
So I was just thinking right now when you were talking is that I was going to make, since you kept saying picker, I made like a little gesture, like I was poking my nose because I was gonna make a stupid dad joke, but the time never came for it. Now it just looks like I poked my nose for no reason. On camera. Dude, actually, this In Your House, it was awesome. I enjoyed it throughout the whole thing. And I was surprised because I try not, when I stream anything, I try not to see how long it is because I don't want to know, like, oh, it's gonna finish soon. So when it finished, I was like, what the, like, what am I watching? Which also, I didn't know what In Your House means. Like, why is it called In Your House?
Oh, there's
Because
like
all the pay-per-views are, well, none of them were in my house because my parents would never buy them. But
then they were out your house if that was the case.
yeah, we out you.
It was cool. Like it kind of, I never had a chance to buy them when I was like younger to really experience it. So this is actually my first time watching Canadian Stampede all the way through. But it was actually interesting. Like I remember seeing clips of it because it was the main event of this show was actually still recorded during when Bret was I think it was Wrestling with Shadows. Bret was doing that. And so they showed a lot of behind the scenes. I remember those little snippets of it, but I never actually seen the full pay-per-view all the way through. And I knew it was going to be shorter, but this was awesomely short. Like it was a good marker for a break. Like I guess In Your House, the theme of it is that you had smaller pay-per-view segments in between your big four shows still. And I guess this is kind of an experimental phase for WWE to really expand on if people were interested in seeing month-to-month shows, because it was always another 4 shows between the big 4 shows that they would have these runoff events with, right? But they were just long enough to keep you entertained without, at the time, oversaturating you with a bunch of excessive wrestling, because most of them were just canon events. Like they didn't have anything to do with storyline. They were just kind of there to have some fun with.
Yeah,
like a pay-per-view house show.
Yeah. Well, the event opens and it made me kind of realize how much I miss the old school In Your House like set. And when NXT brought it back, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like I loved when they brought it back. But like that, the whole simplicity of In Your House with like the set and everything looking like it's like right in your front door. Like I thought that shit was cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was kind of so George, the reason why it was called In Your House is because at some of the original events, they would literally give out a house in the middle of the show.
For real?
And so, I mean, that only lasted for so long because of budgetary reasons, I guess.
Yeah, they're out here pulling some WCW bullshit, giving out race cars.
But they still kept the whole main stage, and that was always awesome to see. And Ted, like the only thing I think I was missing was Ted Pattengill coming on there talking a little bit, but it was still a fun event all the same. I remember Doc Hendricks did a lot of the narration of voiceovers in this pay-per-view. That was kind of weird to hear his voice as often as I heard it. And it didn't even sound like him. It sounded like he was a car salesman of like the late 80s.
Well, he looked like he was a car salesman from the late 80s.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about the announcers and the commentators and stuff. It was funny whenever they got through the intro and everything, and they zoom over to the announce table, and you got JR, King, and Vince. JR just looked like he normally was with the black cowboy hat. Like there was like that was just JR. For a second, I thought that was Dutch Mantel with that big ass hat.
Yeah.
Like, they got Dirty Dutch doing commentary for this one. And then he started talking like, wait, no, that's not.
No, that's the king. That's the king of cowboy hats right there.
I don't know if he just had a really small head or that cowboy hat was just really big. So
I think it was supposed to be really big. But yeah, it didn't look like the King when I was watching it.
I'm gonna go with he just has a really small head.
What does everybody want?
Well, the first match that we had up was kind of one that caught me by surprise. You got Triple H versus Mankind, and really, I like hindsight being what it is. Triple H is like the blue blood with the music and the curtsy and all that. Like now it's so weird to see him doing that. And I know we're right on the cusp of DX forming. And I love Triple H, but the blue blood gimmick,
Hunter was weird.
it was. And how far they dove into it, where they were showing the video package, and there's like a point where JR or King are asking Vince on commentary, well, has he tried to buy the WWE or WWF? It's like, all right, you're kind of going like Duke the Dumpster Drosy too far into this. Like, just let it sit for a second. But I don't know. Seeing Triple H as like the blue blood character was just weird to me. What y'all think?
I found it ironic after watching it back now, and with him being who he was back then. And yeah, when they made reference to it, like with the whole buying WWE, I'm like, well, technically now, fast forward like 28 years, and he can. I mean, as soon as this man dies, I mean, he's got a large stake in the company somewhere. So I'm like, oh, how the tables have actually turned in art entertainment life all of a sudden. So that was kind of rewarding. I did notice that, and this was interesting. This was Chyna's first time actually talking. She had a promo a couple of weeks before on Raw where she actually talked, and and this goes to Mick Foley's credit as a very awesome person for the mic, and going back and forth. Was like she had said something like to the point where Mick, you can kiss my ass, and Mick was like, without missing a beat, was like, luckily I'm a good kisser.
Yep.
And
I saw that. I saw that, and I was like, this is why. This is what I love.
Absolutely died laughing. Oh man, that was so awesome. But I mean,
did it bleep it on your end? Like when she said that, did it bleep? No, yeah.
No.
Yeah, it just didn't sound natural, and I was like, nah, that takes away a little bit from it.
Yeah, but
yeah.
he
was still kind of family oriented back then too. This before they really went balls deep in the Attitude Era. They were getting there though.
But they were on, man, and that's the thing about, like, we're on the cusp of DX, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing that kind of got me, was like, oh, we're right there on starting the Attitude Era, because we had already gotten past Vince doing the, we're entertainment, but we're, whatever, because that was December of '96.
Even though we call ourselves sports entertainment because of the athleticism involved, the key word in that phrase is entertainment.
And like, we're so close. Was it December of '96 that the Vince McMahon?
I think it was. It was. I think they were making the transition at this time. Like, it was a slow build, and then like it kind of just took off. Like after, so it actually took off more after Survivor Series, because we're right there. This is right before Bret Hart wins the title from Taker, leading them to the Survivor Series storyline.
Yeah, I think the next pay-per-view is when we have the Undertaker versus Bret Hart championship.
Yeah, and Shawn Michaels was the special referee, smacked and hit the wrong person with the chair, and then it led to the
And so, yeah, it's weird. I really like Triple H, and I've liked him for a long time. But him being the blue blood, it's weird to kind of see now, looking back on what he was. But I will say, in this is my favorite version of Mankind. I liked Mankind in 98, 99, 2000. I liked him, but this kind of the head shave part, the mask, the rocking back and forth, like this was my favorite version of Mankind, where he seemed just psychotic and as a real threat.
Yeah, like unpredictable. And you know what was annoying me? And I forgot that they did this. Um, calling Triple H by his full name, like the whole time. Hunter Hearst Helmsley does this. Hearst Helmsley does this. It's like every other time. It's like, dude, at what point did they start calling him Triple H? Because golly,
Yeah, that's a fair point, because that was the referring to him as Hunter Hearst Helmsley was kind of getting. I mean, it's a long ass name to constantly
a big ass name.
Somebody else.
Yeah, I think they started doing the Triple H transition. That sounds so weird to say. He transitioned into Triple H like after they had started making DX, because that's when his T-shirts started coming out with the different designs. Seeing that was more marketable that way. But it was interesting to see where his character was heading in this direction, because and I know he had always made reference to him supposed to have won the 95 King of the Ring, but he ended up winning the 96 King of the Ring. And like it's kind of his.
No, he was supposed to win 96. Stone Cold ended up winning that year.
Oh yeah, right, 97.
97.
Yeah, sorry, got my dates mixed up. Yeah. But then he ended up winning it, and so you can see that he was kind of transitioning back into being in good graces and making that push that he was supposed to have had earlier. So, and plus, like Mankind and Triple H's like feud at this time was like amazing to watch. Like they have such great ring chemistry and storytelling powers between their matches. Like even with this one going the way it went, it like kept building and it let both of them really explore sides to themselves that, like, went on to make their careers even more synonymous with each other. Like, when it comes to their feuds, like, you have Triple H versus Mankind, Triple H versus Mick Foley, Dude Love versus Stone Cold, and then, like, Chainsaw, Cassie Jack and Chainsaw Charlie came back all of a sudden. And, like, these levels to each of their characters, and it's like kind of bolstered each other in the right direction when they got to work with each other.
and I think like from saying that, yeah, like they went. You can see the hint of what they turned out to be later on, like like their own person, their own wrestler, and then what I really enjoyed is how it bled into the next match. And that to me, I mean, I wish they would do it more nowadays, because I feel like nowadays you can definitely see that happening more often. It seems more believable. To where it was maybe unexpected, because I definitely, this is the first time I was watching it. So when it happened, I was like, oh, dang, this is pretty cool. Like they're taking over somebody else's time. But nowadays, I feel like I wonder if people get too mad of like, oh, you can't take my time away or whatever. I don't know.
And I think one of the things for me in this match that really kind of emphasized something that we're missing now is how much it meant to be King of the Ring. Like their emphasis on Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley being the King of the Ring just rolls throughout the whole match. How they keep referring to him as the King of the Ring, and he's this and he's that, and I kind of miss that now. The King of the Ring for way too long has become kind of a joke. And
yes, because they weren't referring to him as King Hunter or they were referring to him as King of the Ring Hunter,
right.
And the other H's. But yeah, because after, I don't know who it was where they became, and they like it just seemed like now the persona for King of the Ring, they just turn into a fucking king all of a sudden, and now they're like, and they
just a
pretty much
character.
just look
they're a caricature of what a king is. It's almost
Yeah.
like
Right.
mockingly.
Yeah, I remember when there used to be a time when King of the Ring was a legitimate pay-per-view. You were excited to see, like, the whole night was just a straight up tournament of the semifinals and finals, and you were excited to see the King of the Ring come out, and you knew it was going to take your career to the next level.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this. The King of the Ring used to be where it was almost like the Royal Rumble. The King of the Ring would become the number one contender for the heavyweight championship, right?
There was something
I don't
like
know.
that. There was some kind of stipulation that was along with it because you became King of the Ring. There was like, I think it was either number one contender or like you were kind of put into the top rankings to become.
Yeah,
like,
you were
number
gonna
one
get that
contender.
push. The push was
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you do that? So you have the Royal
Well,
Rumble.
hold on. To be fair, Art, the only last king that mattered in this last like generation of King of the Rings we're talking about was King Booker.
Put the pinky up.
Oh yeah, that's the pinky up.
So why would you not make the King of the Ring the number one contender? So you have the Royal Rumble in January. You have them gaining a championship match at WrestleMania, right? Why would you not do another style thing like that where you are the King of the Ring and you're automatically the number one contender to earn a championship match at Survivor Series, whatever it is? You know, that's like your halfway point of the year Royal Rumble. You know, I think that would be something that they could bring prestige back to the King of the Ring tournament, where that is your mid-year Royal Rumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
That would be
maybe a
pretty
good
cool.
jumping off point to also help you have some like at least a decent storyline into the summer after post WrestleMania, right? Like usually, like SummerSlam, we kind of get eventually into like a big storyline leading up to it, but that could be your storyline leading up to it. You don't have to try to second guess who you can fit here to play a role to the championship match or to like whoever the champion is going to be. He is the rival to it because he earned it with the King of the Ring. And now you have the king versus the champion, and who comes out on top.
Right. And that let me ask you all this. So in this match, it kind of brought up a question that I've had for a long time, but not really sure where it fits in. Where does China rank on your list of managers? As a manager, not as a performer, which she eventually became champion, whatever. But early on, as a manager, watching her, where does she rank? What do we think about her as a manager?
Oh shit! Now you made me have to think about her as a manager. For starters, she was just to me. She wasn't really a manager. She was just a bodyguard. Like sort of like a Rhea Ripley. Like she's more of an enforcer role, not an actual managerial role.
That's
So
fair.
I can't think of Triple H without thinking of China. Old school Triple H. There's no, both of them are together no matter what.
Yeah.
And same thing. Well, I guess later on, like if I feel like I can think of China without thinking of Triple H, because I'll think China, ninth wonder of the world. She did her own, her own thing as a wrestler as well. But then I also see her with Eddie, and then with Eddie Guerrero, she also helped Eddie Guerrero get even more more fame or heat, whatever.
Yeah.
Was it Latino heat that she helped him?
Yeah, that's Latino heat.
And that's not, and that's not a knock on China, and like to not put her in that manager list, but it's just that she played a different role. Like even when she was with Eddie, she still played that listen, she'll get in there and knock somebody around if she needed to, but like managers don't get in there and get rough like that. That's what enforcers do. And so she became some pretty nice looking eye candy as the career moved on and elevated itself. But she was her own spectacle to a certain extent, right?
She became some good eye candy, but she's no Judy Bagwell, right?
Hell no. Judy Bagwell was bae. And man, Martha Hart sitting there ringside, my God. We'll talk more about that later.
So yeah, China, I you're right. I don't really consider her a manager.
That's a good question.
She was in that time frame. She was a manager, but you're right. She's more an enforcer than anything else. But there was a point where she's on the ring apron and she's got her arms up and she's yelling in the ring. And it made me think, who's got the bigger triceps? China in 97 or Mr. Nathaniel Hall over here?
Oh, China for sure.
Can we see? Let's see them triceps. Come on.
There's some meat hanging there. But no, she still put me to shame. She had an incredible work ethic back then that knows no bounds.
Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about right there. Like when I was watching this again, I was like, man, I think China was like my first like strong woman crush.
Yeah.
I was like,
always when I think of China, I always remember when she first got into the ring, when she debuted and like started whooping Terry Reynolds around. I was like, that was, yeah. I was like, who's this man beating up on this woman? And then I realized it's like, oh, that's China.
You know, the match was really good. Like Triple H, I don't know if it's Triple H or if it's Mick Foley or if it's them on their own. Their chemistry was just so good. There was that spot where Triple H whipped Mick Foley and China caught him and like body slammed him into the fucking steps.
That was always my favorite spot for Mick Foley at this time. He would make it look so convincing that like it just like hurt, but it was like he just landed the right angle and the camera caught it to where it just looked like it hurt like hell, but he would easily be able to walk away from it. Like that was beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful selling.
That's a testament to Mick Foley, man. That dude, he put himself through so much pain, but there were a lot of things that he goes back and says like, oh yeah, that didn't hurt at all. It just looked painful. But everything for him looked painful. Like that. God, that one got me.
Just breathing for him looked painful. Like just like when he was like, have a good time.
You know, he's from he's the product of New
It's a nice day. It's a nice day. I fucked it up. Cut that out. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew it messed it up.
All right, so we just had another Raven moment.
Oh man, bless his heart.
George given another statement of a wrestler's catchphrase. What? Have a good day.
Oh shit!
Listen, I'm the worst. I'm the worst at quoting things. This is why on my podcast we say it's too hard to fast and we don't check facts because I am the worst with song lyrics or quotes.
Shit, but so let me ask y'all. We were talking about this a couple of minutes ago. As far as rivalries go, Triple H, Mick Foley, their rivalries throughout their career are legendary. I mean, and it's what made them legends, right? But who had the better rivals, Mick Foley or Triple H?
The long haul, I would say probably Triple H had the better rivalries just because of the long standing he stayed in without a break.
So you give him,
and then you also get
longevity because.
Well, yeah, and then that's also you also got to remember Mick Foley had that one time in TNA, so that kind of Nope, gotta talk.
No,
Yeah, no,
no,
it's there. It's like Jordan retiring and going to play for the Wizards. It happened. We don't like to talk about it, but it happened.
no, it didn't. It's like Jordan retiring and going and playing baseball. No, it didn't.
It kind of did. They made a whole movie about it.
They had to make a whole movie about him going and playing baseball, and it's like, you know what? Nope, he's being abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
But
At least it
okay,
motivated.
did Triple H have the meaningful rivalry?
I mean, we're in 1997 here. Triple H and Mick Foley's rivalry didn't really culminate until 2000. So you've got 3 years in there. So I would say, man, both guys, their evolution in character development with their rivalries, I couldn't, if you were asking me right now to pick one, like who had the better one, right? Which I've put to y'all. I couldn't do one without the other. They have been so good. And there's not a way for me to separate the two. Like if you think back and say, okay, what if Mick Foley never came to WWF, right? And now you have the Attitude Era, the 96, when he debuted as Mankind, and he's gone. There are so many empty holes in this time frame, right? Mm-hmm. Same with Triple H. If you pick him out and throw him out of WWF, right? He is so important to the development of WWF that you can't pull him out. You can't pull out Mick Foley. I'm at a loss for what I could choose to be the one who had the better rivalries, because to me, they kind of mirror each other on everything, and not only mirror each other, but they are interacting with each other. You know what I mean?
So let me turn your question in a slightly different way. In the bigger scheme of the WWE and like the way that what's the word I was looking for? So like the way they kind of like transitioned and elevated each other's careers. Like so in that same turn, you also had The Rock, Stone Cold, you had the Undertaker playing a pivotal role, Kane. Like everybody kind of stepped the game up, and they were always involved in each other's storylines, like booking wise, in some way, shape, or form. I guess the better question to ask is, or I guess the better way to frame the answer to the question is, Triple H had the better rivalries for a main event level, and Mick Foley was okay and actually worked really well as a supporting mid-card rivalry. But like they do tend to run parallel to each other a lot and cross over. So they are both really pivotal. But like I said, like I was saying was like Triple H just had more of the limelight, where Mick Foley was okay just being a supporting actor.
That's fair. That's fair.
I love Triple H, like his character and all that. He's still a badass, and he's still like a big part of the whole. Me growing up watching wrestling. So like I don't want to be like, oh, compare it and then just end up talking shit about Triple H.
Yeah, and honestly, speaking of being a badass, I don't know if there's anybody more badass than Mick Foley selling the awkward as fluid. And let me explain that a little bit better. Mick Foley as Mankind in this era just came off so fucking awkward, right?
Yeah.
there would be moments in the match where he would just like stumble and like fall and hit the ropes, and Triple H would like fall. He would hit, he was on the top rope and he'd fall and hit. Like Mick Foley he's the master of being awkward.
He reminded me of like a goofy Robin Williams, but in a wrestling show.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. George, unlike that.
Wait, what? No, I like that. That made sense. I was just thinking like riskier.
And in that, I mean, the finish of the match, I didn't mind. I normally hate the kind of bullshit finishes like this where it's like, oh, double count out or whatever, but I liked it, and it made me think we were getting pretty close to that Monday Night Raw where my man Bang Bang Cactus Jack returned, right? Because I think this kind of led into that with them continuously fighting, doing the hardcore stuff.
Yeah. And it could never have a finish. They just kept on going. I did like that. Like, it reminded me I was in 97. That was one of the remarkable parts, is that they actually stuck true to rules in wrestling matches. Like, there's no like getting to 9 and rolling underneath the ring. Like, you just kind of like shot it out there and just kept on going sometimes because it was the heat of the battle and not just trying to like get inside of a count real quick. So I thought that was fun to go back down and remember those type of things happening in the matches, because like it was DQs the way it was supposed to be done. And there's a couple of hits and misses later we'll talk about, but it was fun. Like, it was the way the match ended, left it open, and then like that long-term story booking with them ended up making it perfect for new characters to be developed and stuff. So yeah, no, it was a good finish. It was a surprising finish, right? But nobody's really paying attention because it's a house show on pay-per-view.
Right.
Yeah.
Jorge Empanada, what'd you think?
No, the ending was perfect because, like I said, it was the first time I was watching it, so it caught me off guard. But to the point, the fact that I've been around and I've watched a few of these, like, oh, okay, cool, that makes sense. Like, this is badass. But like I told you guys before we were recording, my son was watching it with me, and he was hardcore into it, to the point where like he hears, din 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 din, and he's like, "What happened? What happened? They're still fighting." It's like, "Well, the match is over," and then he hears like double count out or whatever. He goes, "What? What? It's over!" And so he was like really into that. And so I wish I didn't could be experiencing it in that way of like for the very first time. Because yes, mine is the first time, but I've seen others. So this is like the very first time of like, oh, everything just went haywire, and it's just like it's still continued. Like they're still fighting, even though there's like the match is over. So I thought that was like the perfect ending for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good match. So
Which, by the way, I feel like us talking about this one match has already lasted longer than the pay-per-view itself.
Oh, just wait, because now we got to rate the match. So I gave this match a 3.86. I really enjoyed the match. It was a good fight. It had good drama. It had good storytelling. It was a good match. So I gave it a 3.86.
I gave it a 3.5, and knowing that they get better, and this was a good starting off point for.
I was wanting to go into the fours, so I went 3.99.
Oh man!
Just round up. It's okay. Just round up.
Just because it was like as good, like I just said, but
we're not grading on a curve here, Lathan.
You're not grading on a curve.
I think that's like as good as it would, because I know it's for worthy, but it was just like short. Like if I had a little bit more for sure, because I think for everything, China, the antics that went on the side of like the ring side, all that was perfect. Like making sure you distract the referee. Where nowadays, like the referee knows the spot and he just turns it around or whatever. Like this was like, oh, come here, like it was perfectly done.
It was very fluid. The match was very fluid.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's where I'm at.
All right. So with that, we're going to take our first commercial break to get a announcement from our sponsor. So we will be right back with the next match.
Hey, Too Hard, Too Fast podcast, a lighthearted, thought-provoking, comedic podcast where we talk about society and culture topics through the lives and experiences of my guests. But that's what it says on paper. The important thing to remember is that Too Hard, Too Fast, we don't check facts. Something you can check is for Too Hard, Too Fast podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and any other podcast platform that you use or don't use. Use them all. Watch us all on all of it.
So we're going to get into the next part of the show, which was a Stampede promo that they played a lot throughout the show. And I get it. They were promoting the Canadian Stampede and everything, which I didn't know they had cowboys in Canada, which is cool. I mean, born and raised Texan, born and raised outside the King Ranch. I didn't know anything existed outside of that, but this is going to be a weird one. So, question I have. So, Diana Hart Smith was Miss Calgary. She was pretty, but was she that pretty, or was it?
She's pretty enough, Art. It's Canada. It's Canada. It's Canada. It's okay.
I mean, she's a really pretty woman. I'm not taking that away from her at all.
No,
it's Canada.
For what it was worth, like, so you got to think about context, right? Like, it was the '90s, like that, like she at a point was like a visual what attractive social standards look like, right? If you're in your beauty pageant, that's kind of what it was. But you gotta look at it through the lens of 1990s, like when it comes to like makeup and hairstyles and attire, right? Like it was a different time. Like you'll look at like when you get to the end of the main event, you'll see D.H. Smith with like a chili bowl haircut with a split down the middle like JTT with some maple syrup sprinkled on them. But like it's just like that was what was cute at the time. I couldn't do that shit to my hair. Like it was just weird. Like it's if you put it into its right context, we can see where like while she may not be what we would think is beauty model standards now, like back then it was slightly different. And again, it's Canada, which I love. Canadians, and y'all are awesome people, beautiful people. I get it. Like it's just it's Canada.
All right, let's clear up one thing real quick. You can't do that to your hair because that's cultural appropriation. So
it wasn't cultural appropriation back then. It was just a sign of the times, Art.
No, you said you with your hair. No, you can't do it.
Well, to be fair, my hair also couldn't get that long. It takes a couple of years.
But
I can't grow a beard.
Continglas.
All right, so I had to do a Google image search real quick to make sure I wasn't roasting her too hard.
No, she was a very pretty woman. She's a very pretty woman. Yeah, no, I'm not taking that away from her.
Listen, I'm not trying to have D.H. Smith kind of kick my ass. I'm talking about his
no, I'm just looking at if I'm standing in a bar, right, and I'm drinking a beer, and I look
then
over,
everyone's a pretty woman. Even me.
Tequila.
No, I'm just trying to get your autograph because I think you're conticulous. No, if I'm looking at her, or if I'm at Walmart, or I'm at the middle of.
If you're at Walmart, you've gone too hard, too fast.
I know. I keep naming these places, and I'm like, shit, this is not working out well. If I'm all right, you know what? If I'm at Disney World and I'm walking by this woman, and I look at Diana, I'm thinking to myself, damn, she's pretty. But is she beauty pageant winner pretty?
Yes and no. When did she win the beauty pageant?
That was 97.
She won it that year?
Yeah, she's wearing the sash.
I thought that
Or
just a
was it
shit
fake
Vince
for
brought that
WWE?
up.
George? No, she's in a parade. They're promoting this Miss Calgary and all of that with her. So
How long is this parade? Maybe a block and a half. You know, whatever Vince McMahon just shut down.
Well, no. So, but apparently the Canadian Stampede is like in Canada is the equivalent of like the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in Texas, and so like they all have like the parades. It's a week of just like fun, and everybody's all cowboyed up. And so it's so like they always have the pageants, and like apparently the Hearts are there every year in some way, shape, or form, getting represented by somebody. And so like this year they had like Davy Boy and Diana out there with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So yeah, so I was like, oh, that's cool that they put all that together. But I didn't realize that she had actually won. I thought that was just some hokey shit that Vince had put together to kind of highlight her in some way, shape, or form in the match too. Because Lord knows that if your last name ends with Hart, you have to be some kind of involvement in the show. So
yeah, y'all know. All right, let's move on. All right, so the next matchup we have is Taka Michinoku, George's favorite, versus the Great Sasuke, which I had to look up and see, like, oh, the Great Sasuke, is he somebody else? No, he's not, but he's apparently a very well-traveled, accomplished wrestler, which you see in the match. You see how good he is with Taka in the match. Man, they pulled out the Triple H Mankind coming in and fighting. I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Like, you could have did the Triple H Mankind stuff and just ended it. And they brought them back in and kind of ruined, and it goes back to stuff that we talked to on the first podcast. WrestleMania 14, available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, where they kind of disrespect the light heavyweights. And man, I think this is when they were building for that the first debut of Cactus Jack on Monday Night Raw, when they did the three faces of Foley sitting together and the whatever. But they didn't need it. And it just seemed like it was kind of bullshit on top of the match that could have been really good.
Like the one thing that was the one thing that was kind of annoying. Luckily, it was just a moment of time, and it didn't really take up that much. It took up just enough time to be annoying, but at the same time, it just when they put more emphasis back on the match was even even better in a certain extent because they knew they were going on while this was going on. So it looks like there's a transition somewhere in the match where like they get back the attention that was taken away from them. Not specifically because that's gone now, but because they are putting more emphasis on the action inside the ring. Because literally, this is probably like one of the best matches on the card. Like bell to bell, as far as like between the ropes, they put on a show. Like this is like Japanese wrestling at its finest, and cruiserweight wrestling at a pivotal point where like they didn't really see a lot of it on WWE TV at all. Which both, when it comes to Taka and it comes to the way that they eventually shift his character throughout the years and some of the better matches for light heavyweight titles and things like that. It just goes to show what they had more, the potential it had to run with. I wish Sasuke came, or Suzuki, whatever the hell his name is, came back a couple more times. I know this is like his only match on ever in the WWE, but he definitely could have had more range to move with inside of the light heavyweight title. So yeah, but it was definitely good. It was a good match, bell to bell, absolutely. Now, what was quite entertaining was Vince McMahon not knowing shit about Japanese wrestling, and awkwardly putting some commentary together for this. So I don't know if you were listening to it, but it was quite interesting.
Yeah, it was actually not bad, and I actually took a note of it that Jerry Lawler was a lot less dickish than he was later on.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, it was the announcing for this was just, you kind of tell, like, JR was kind of comfortable with talking about some of it because he had done, like, I guess, some voiceover commentary for New Japan before at that point too, for the English dub version. But like, you could tell, especially like Vince and King were kind of both out of their element slightly in this, and then kind of treaded the water the way that they felt like they can make it go over better. But yeah, but like the commentary, I said there's a point where I kind of just stopped listening. After I watched it the second time, I was just like, I'm just gonna watch this match for what it is.
George, what'd you think, man?
Well, everybody knows I'm a Taka Michinoku fan. And you add some vodka to the Michinoku driver, and you call that breakfast. But I thought it was weird how when the pay-per-view from the very beginning opens, the first thing Vince McMahon says is looking forward to this Japanese fight or Japanese match. And I was like, okay. Like,
told me everything I was going to need to know about this real quick.
Well, to me, it was, again, watching it for the first time, I was like, oh, I wonder what makes it a Japanese match. And then I realized, well, they're both Japanese. But then in all that, like watching it through, like all the moves, like it's all technical stuff. It's all technical. So I've never seen New Japan or anything like that, but I've heard of like how things are so different. So that made me feel like there was a little bit of a glimpse of what wrestling is in Japan. And so, which also, I don't know if it was just maybe the crowd wasn't into it, or maybe it's just a different culture too. Because I've also heard that in Japan, like during the match, they're very quiet.
Right.
But like the Canadian fans, that were also very quiet. Meanwhile, I was like really into everything they were doing,
Yeah.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it was that there was a moment where the Great Sasuke jumped off the top rope like with a Liu Kang Mortal Kombat style kick. And I was like, that was cool as shit. Like,
yeah.
it was a cool moment, and I actually have in my notes. No.
Wait, what?
Do it like you're about to beat your brother up.
I don't know.
No,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
No, what was it? We were in one of the other podcasts we were talking about, and you were like, I could never do the actual move, but I would yell, Taka Michinoku!
Oh, yeah. Yes. Taka Michinoku!
All I could think about watching this match after that was you. Well, I couldn't give him the Michinoku driver.
I couldn't do the Michinoku driver, but
dude, you're doing it so loud, the mic's cutting out.
Oh man. Taka Michinoku!
There it is. But that was it. One of the things I really liked about this match. So it was great wrestling. It was a cruiserweight, light heavyweight style match without it being a spot fest. Like, it felt like a really good match without it, like, the wrestler standing there waiting for the guy to fall on him, and everything was really good. The crowd was digging it. They were loving this match. And I don't know. I don't know if it was maybe just Vince at the time or whatever it may have been. I'm not going to speculate on that, but man, they really missed out on an opportunity with the cruiserweights, and this match had such a disappointing end. Like, the simple back hook, suplex, pin, win. Like, I mean, I'm watching.
That's crazy. My wife said the same thing because she like caught the end of it and she got into it, and then all of a sudden she goes, "Well, that was kind of like not that great of a way to win." Yeah, and I was like, "What?" I thought it was pretty cool.
No,
I don't know. I thought just because seeing all that like different technical stuff, like I thought like perfect.
Well,
but that goes to show like how we're programmed nowadays, right? Like, everything ends with a big spot move. Like, your finisher is your definitive move. And like, this kind of goes into showing how much they didn't care about it, the cruiserweight, the division at the time, is because you can just go ahead to win the match by like a random pin like that, right? Or instead of it being like an overwhelming finishing move, like, it just is what it is. Like, the pin was the pin. Even though like I thought it was gonna be over at the Michinoku driver, but then here we go around about 2 more minutes, and then here comes this pin attempt, and that I do for a kick out on WWE SmackDown at the time on my creative wrestling, and they still kick out of it. But I can see where it was slightly underwhelming, but at the same time, it just was what it was.
And maybe that was the whole point, is they wanted to make Taka stronger by this. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It didn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
To me, it makes perfect sense because now we know when the pin's coming. We know, the setup. You do this, you gesture to the crowd, the big move's coming, you hit the big move, and now and some wrestlers have a secondary move, so they hit the secondary move, and then boom, it's a pin, or if they kick out, it's eventually gonna happen again. But what this was like to me was like, oh, this is a simple move, they're gonna kick out, and I was like 1, 2, 3, and it's, oh, they didn't kick out. That to me was like, wow, a simple move and they didn't kick out. So it made it more exciting for me.
Yeah, I'll give you that. That is a fair point.
You don't have to give it to me. I already took it.
I didn't give you permission to take it.
And now we're talking about something else, and YouTube will cancel us.
So the next thing up was the promo with the Nation fighting and everything, and showing Ahmed Johnson getting hurt. And I remember as a kid, I really liked Ahmed Johnson, but he always seemed to be there, be in the middle of stuff, and then he was just gone. And then he would come back and he was there, and then he was gone. And they said that he tore his ACL, tore his MCL, whatever it was. And he was supposed to be the opponent for Undertaker. And man, Ahmed Johnson was just
he's accident prone. He's a Fabergé egg.
I mean, he got that injury bug and it just never went away.
No. And it carried on to it's basically his whole career, is he's just constantly getting hurt when when the chips are working in his favor. Like, he had the Intercontinental push, injured. Came back, part of the Nation, injured. and then he's injured. And he's just gone at one point. And then I remember he came back as Sweet Tea. And
Ooh,
in WCW,
what about that?
and he looked like he had been drinking a bunch of sweet tea. Diabetes tea, just
big.
if you will.
With oh god, the
Stevie Ray.
no, the manager,
Oh,
the guy, you're gonna wrestle 1-on-1 with the Undertaker player.
Teddy Long.
Teddy
yeah.
Long.
Oh,
Yeah, when he was getting back into managerials and quit being a referee all over the damn place.
And he was a big referee.
Yeah. And Ahmed Johnson was a big injury risk, which I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and I hate to say it because I hate to see the ill will of people and their downfall, but thank God Ahmed Johnson got injured when he did, and we got this Vader versus Undertaker match instead, because this was awesome. That big man can move and fly, and like between Undertaker's athleticism at the time before all the surgeries, and Vader being pushed as like this dominant heel before Shawn Michaels kind of nipped that in the butt and stomped that into the ground. This was an awesome match.
So, well, with that, and that brings me to my first point of this match. What went wrong with Vader in the WWF?
Shawn Michaels is exactly it. Like, it was so like there's actually like this is on a couple of different shoot interviews where like basically like Vader missed a spot in one of their matches. Shawn had a fit literally in the ring, like kicked him in the head in the middle of the ring. They finished the match, and then Shawn Michaels went back to bitch at Vince about it, and that kind of killed this whole push at the same time.
I don't know, man. I watched this match, and it was a good match, but Vader wasn't the same that we had seen.
No, this match more specifically was after that happened, and they were just kind of, he was still good and still putting in a good honest work, but you could tell they were like starting to slowly move him away from his push that they were trying to bring him to. Like it's sort of like what's the best way to put it? Like he was still doing pretty decent work, but then like you could tell that like they were kind of like grounding his push. Like he's just now a place card for somebody to get over with. And that's why, the match still was good, and Undertaker's going to win, given the circumstances. But, I mean,
yeah,
a big part of it played to, that, and he does wrestle really stiff most of the time, too. And so, like, he can be, like, Vader can be a risk in that aspect where the wrestler can work too stiff because he's so used to New Japan style wrestling where everybody works stiff and everything's a shoot. But like between, I say those two specifically, those two issues were probably the more prominent things that kind of killed his push the first time around. But he was awesome with Boy Meets World.
As a matter of fact. I don't know, man.
Which is where I originally know him from.
I like watching him in this match versus some of the stuff I've seen him in New Japan. He's not the same. He's not the same as he was in WCW. I disagree with the Shawn Michaels push because Shawn Michaels isn't even on this pay-per-view. I don't know. George, what'd you think, man?
It was kind of nice to see Vader, but it felt awkward that they just like, oh, this guy got hurt, let's put Vader. It had no draw to me, like, to watch the match. And I think I fell asleep during half of it.
I'll tell you what drew me to the match was fucking Paul Bearer. Man.
Oh, yes, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Holy shit. That guy is... Oh, man.
We got talking about Paul Heyman and how great he is, but, you can't forget Paul Bearer.
Paul Bearer, and we had talked about this on one of the prior podcasts. Paul Bearer, man, I want to put him as my number one manager of all time. Watching him in this match,
Wait, over Paul Heyman?
Paul Bearer.
But no, I know, but you're saying number one, like he will be better than Paul Heyman.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so because I mean, his body language, his emphasis on the match, him, I mean, in the corner covering up and hiding
Yeah.
when Undertaker came in, when he's yelling at the camera, he's like, you know, get out of here. You know, he's yelling at the camera. Man, it's hard to find somebody who commits that much to a match. I mean, even Paul Heyman now. I mean, you look at Paul Heyman. He is committed to the match, but he is not cowering, hiding. He is not yelling at the camera.
Yeah, man. He's and then this is where I would probably say I can see where I would agree with you with that because Paul Heyman's still around. And is he taking notes from Paul Bearer? Because you see him in the corner right now with Roman Reigns kind of yelling in the corner, doing my trouble, chief, doing my trouble, like doing like the silly things that anybody with an ego will be like, oh, I'm not gonna do something silly like that. But this guy's like, no, fuck that. Like I'm adding to it, and I think he does. He adds really good. But that makes sense. Like,
but Paul Bearer was so with Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman is almost just portraying himself, being himself in this, right? Paul Bearer was emphasizing that hatred for the Undertaker, whether it was Vader, Kane, Mankind, whoever it was. He emphasized that hatred for the Undertaker, and he's yelling about how he hates the Undertaker. He is just, I mean, just hatred. Paul Heyman doesn't do that. He supports Roman Reigns. He supported CM Punk. He supported Brock Lesnar.
I thought we said we would not mention that name again.
Heath
Phil Brooks
shall not be named. But Paul Bearer not only was a manager for the person he was with, but he had a true hatred for the Undertaker. Yeah. And I think that to me, I mean, it came out in him. You know, with Paul Heyman, his loyalty just oozes out of him. And I'm not going to take anything away from Paul Heyman. I think Paul Heyman is one of the top 5 managers of all time. I think Paul Bearer is number 1 in that because not only was he so good with the Undertaker when he was the manager of the Undertaker, as being somebody who was completely with the Undertaker, but after he left the Undertaker, his pure hatred oozed out of him, along with his loyalty to who he was with at that time. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you just at that time, it's the consistency of the storyline characters that made that play out even better, because his hatred for the Undertaker was portrayed through the other wrestlers that he had pushed into those feuds with the Undertaker. Like, it was like he used, like they were kind of pawns to get back at the Undertaker where he couldn't physically do it himself, like with Mankind and then Kane. But then going back to this too, this was in the midst of only reason why I remember this more specifically is because of the weird fucking hair he had at the time. But like this played into Kane coming out later. They started teasing this story build. Like literally, I believe it was weeks after or starting the week before, where it's like Kane's alive, Kane's alive. It's like everybody, like you see the Undertaker visibly get like panicked, and it like leaves that question there, right? And so it leads you to it adds more long term story building to their world, their storyline itself, and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like when is Kane coming? And you want to tune in just to make sure you don't miss that debut. You know, so that was cool that they started sprinkling that in as well, going into this.
We're still 2 months away from Kane debuting.
Yeah. 3 months because it was at Bad Blood.
Right. So the next pay-per-view, and then they had another one, or the next one was Bad Blood.
That's good shit, pal.
there was a moment where there was the most botched tombstone I've ever seen, where Undertaker tries to pick up Vader and then they fall backwards and then Vader just falls over.
Yeah.
And
he's a big boy.
Man.
He's an awkward big boy.
And then it led to the closest 2 count I've ever seen in my life. Holy shit. Like, I had to rewind it 3 times because I'm like, nope, he hit the mat. Nope, this was a fuck up on their side. And you go back and watch it, and that dude just, I mean, it is like, here's the mat, and he's like, nope.
Yeah. No, that was kind of crazy. I didn't look at it that hard, but yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty damn close. But it just goes to show the awesome referees they had back then that could clean that up real quick without paying attention. Shout out to those refs back then.
All right, so let's rank it. So George, rank it first. What do you have? Give me your first.
Wait, did we rank the Taka Michinoku ones?
Nope.
See, we don't even care about the cruiserweight division that much.
First of all, sir, it's called the light heavyweight division.
Listen, whatever pronoun you want to give to, it's a bunch of just vanilla men just running around the ring.
2.8.
Ah, okay. All right. Lathan, what'd you give it?
The Undertaker match was definitely like a 2.678. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm a fan of most, like, some work of Undertaker, but like you were kind of saying, Vader, like Vader's kind of like slowly not being the Vader of old, and it started to show out in the match a little bit. It still was a good match for 2 athletic big men like that. It's just it had a couple of botches, and still entertaining, but like across the board, the rest of the card, hands down, definitely better matches. And so this was kind of the low point of the show, in my opinion.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Man,
your piss break is this match.
I gave this match a 3.1. I thought it was a good match. It extended the Undertaker with his dominance and stuff. Now, I took away points because we got the teardrop taker. That just bugs me watching him with the fucking teardrop, like we've talked about.
Looks like a mole. It looks like a fucking mole every time.
I thought
he looks like a cholo poser zombie.
It's like if a goth kid wanted to be a cholo.
Oh my god!
But you know what? I put in here. God, I love the winged eagle. Damn it! I love that belt so much. And so the next thing that we have up is we got another Canadian Stampede promo, which, I mean, it was cool. The thing that stuck out to me on this one was with knowing how petty Vince McMahon can be, man, they promoted the shit out of the Hart family on this one.
And rightfully so. I mean, like, if it was any other place and time, like, this is kind of like this bizarro land when you cross that northern border. Like, what is right is wrong up there, and what's wrong is weird up there. But like, it goes into kind of like, do you remember watching Wrestling with Shadows, and Bret Hart would always talk about how he's a hometown hero. You think about it, you think like he's kind of arrogantly talking about himself, trying to stroke his own ego, but man, they love the Hart Foundation in a weird, heroic way up there. Like, it is not a over comparison. Like, if your last name is Hart, you are like royalty up there, wrestling wise. Like, my God, like, so I can understand why they kind of promoted the way they were, because even in this match, like in the next match, you'll hear them say Austin sucks and fuck Stone Cold verbally, like very audibly say it. They are some of the most passionate wrestlering fans I've seen. And like when the Hart Foundation comes out, the pop is massive. Like, it's kind of crazy to hear, even though they're heels in North America, they're like loved and revered when they get to Canada. And
we'll get to that and their ovation.
Yeah.
Was it weird to y'all that they randomly threw in the Canadian national anthem like halfway through the show? So we're used to, with the
beginning,
they start the show with America the Beautiful and go from there. But we got random, like, Canada in the middle of the pay-per-view.
Yeah. That just goes to show how ass backwards Canadians do it up there. So it was what it was. But I was like, you gotta give them the credit. Like, you gotta at least acknowledge them with the national anthem at some point in time, right? I thought they were gonna put it maybe like on a pre-show or something like that, but it didn't take it. It was there.
I mean, it would have made more sense to
open the show. I mean, that's what they do for the fucking hockey nights and stuff over there. So I don't know why they wouldn't do it for wrestling. The second
they should have opened with it. I do agree. They should have opened with that. What I thought was weird. Also, I thought it was the Dixie Chicks when they, I'm just saying. The promo they
all right, that one got me.
The promo that they cut with like the Stone Cold, like the American wrestlers. I don't know why I did that for American. It was like it made no sense. Like Goldust made some sense, and then from there it just went downhill. And then it's like, okay, and then Stone Cold walks off. Where's he walking up to? They're doing the fucking national anthem.
Oh shit!
That to me was weird.
Yeah. So the next match that we have up is the 10-man tag team match, which I don't know. I thought was kind of a cool concept, but I've never been a fan of the Hart Foundation, so it was kind of hard for me to be excited for that. But again, I've never been a fan of Stone Cold. I've always been a fan of Goldust. LOD, meh. Ken Shamrock, like Ken Shamrock. This was just kind of a weird main event for me. I don't know. What'd y'all think?
The American group itself was weird to me because I feel like their connections together was like the most oddball kind of thing. Like LLD, and Stone Cold definitely don't mix, and then Goldust and Ken Shamrock, definitely don't mix.
That was your first connection, not Goldust and Stone Cold?
Well, I mean,
I got a question though. if you could book this, who would you have tag with Stone Cold?
I don't know who's around at the time. Like I can't remember back then. Like because obviously I
See, you
didn't
lose
watch
this
the
argument
thing.
already, George. Get out of here.
Oh fuck! I'm gonna go refill my water.
Man, I think you'd have to have Stone Cold. So you'd have Shawn Michaels with him, Triple H with him. I think you'd have to have Vader to counteract Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I think Jim Neidhart and Vader would have been a great like matchup, not a singles match, but a great like tag matchup. I think LOD was well placed. But yeah, the American side, like George said, it was so damn random. Not
Yeah, so I'll break it down to you like this because I had to do some really deep thinking about this, and I had to go back into like storyline memory banks. So yes, while on paper it looks really random, and even in application it looks really random, you have to think about what was going on at the time. So Stone Cold was basically fighting Bret to a certain extent. Right now, they were starting their rivalry coming off of I think what was WrestleMania 13. This is June, so they just had their match at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
and then at the time they were starting a tag team rivalry. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith with Legion of Doom. The only one that was on the out, more specifically storyline wise, in some way, shape, or form, was Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Ken Shamrock. So neither one of them really had a rivalry at that time with anybody from the opposing side. Owen was going. Oh no, I guess it was Owen and Ken Shamrock was like they were kind of having like a mini feud about the Intercontinental titles or starting it. They were about to go into their storyline, and then Goldust had his thing with Brian Pillman that turned into Marlena becoming Brian Pillman's valet for a while, and then of course we already know how that ends. But they like at least rationally made sense because they all had like some kind of bone to pick with the opposing side. It looked like shit and it didn't make sense. But like that's presumably looking back, that's why I think they ended up putting the group together they did for the face side to go against the heel Hart Foundation. Because you have a solid faction. It's sort of like if you had not recently, if you have like the bloodline on one side of the ring, you kind of have to kind of cherry pick who to put there in a correlating storyline that makes sense for them to be in the ring with them, right? Like it's kind of the same concept.
Yeah, but they were in Canada, so the Hart Foundation were the babies.
That's true, but like at the same time, they didn't think about it like that back then, clearly, because they didn't have to. Like, I don't think they really thought about the big picture about how they would be so cheered and like revered in Canada, even with them having that heel turn, because they sorry have this heel turn in America, and I'm assuming somebody in creative thought it would still carry over to Canada, but it didn't, like the way they wanted to.
Well, I disagree with that. I think they kind of planned it, but I think overall in this match, the biggest question that we could have had out of everything, all five guys on either side, there is no bigger question than whether Bret Hart's glasses came in bifocal for his mom. But you know what? I will say I've never been a huge Stone Cold fan. But this version of Stone Cold, I like. I like this version. Like the true, like giving the middle finger to people, and
yeah,
I like this version of Stone
Cold.
really.
It's like it's the popular version of Stone Cold before it became mainstream popular. Like we're seeing, I get that. Like the original version before, like he was on Got Milk commercials with Regis and Philbin. So I get that. It was overall, I mean, like I did enjoy the pieces of the Hart Foundation. Like it was kind of one of those where like you enjoyed seeing Stone Cold and how his character was coming across each week on TV, getting kind of a one-ups on like the Hart Foundation, right? But at the same time, like it was the Hart Foundation. They were kind of draped in gold at the time. You had Bret Hart he eventually the WWE champion again, had the Intercontinental title, tag team titles, Slammy, 2-time Slammy Award winner Owen Hart. Like literally everything came through the Hart Foundation, and like he had to like it was kind of one of those that like it kind of made him look cool for the moment, but then of course everything good got to come to an end at some point, right?
So in this match, you had Owen with the 2 Slammies. Owen was the Intercontinental champion. Davey Boy was the European
champion,
and that was it. But George, why are you so damn quiet over there?
Well, it's just I'm watching it over here right now. Like I put it back on, but I'm listening to you guys, and I'm kind of like not fully agreeing with anything that you guys are saying almost. But this is why. So I'm a big Stone Cold fan. Always have been. Like that guy, pretty much has shaped my attitude. But Ken Shamrock, man, I remember like as soon as he came out, I was like the most lethal man in the world. I don't remember what I said.
Dangerous.
Whatever. Yeah. And then and I don't know, I was yelling at my wife. I was like, he had to register himself as a lethal weapon. Stupid stuff. And Goldust, like his gimmick, this whole thing, like the weirdness of Goldust, like I've always loved. But LOD have no connection. I've never really cared for them.
But you know what? In this moment with Goldust, he was actually as awkward and as weird as his character always was. In this moment, he was such a straight up like wrestler. Like he had gotten, he's Goldust, but he's out of that Goldust character.
He's more Dustin Runnels, just dressed up as Goldust right now.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But what I found myself doing during this match was cheering for the Hart Foundation, even though I liked those guys.
You Mexican Canadian motherfucker.
Dude, we've already established Natalia doesn't follow you. I'm sorry.
No. But like here's why, and I think this is probably what happened. And I've heard this and that recently happened with like The Rock and somebody else. Like I don't know what I was watching, where they had to turn who they were supposed to be in the match. Like one was supposed to be the bad guy or the
Hogan versus Rock.
Yeah, and then they turned because of the crowd. So I think this is what was happening here, and then it was happening to me because I was like cheering on for the Hart Foundation, even though I liked the other guys a little bit more.
Well, I think in this,
but here's before all that, like I think I don't know. I'm a little bit corrupt from that. If I was back then watching this, I think I would cheer for Stone Cold in them. But now, and I sent you guys earlier a picture of meeting Bret Hart. Dude, fucking nicest guy I've ever met.
Oh, that
nicest
was
wrestler. Yeah, that was me. you can use that picture if you want on this. But yeah, man, super nice. And why? Because he was at a Comic-Con, doing his thing, but I was kind of a bit of a punk where I waited to where he was leaving and then asked him for a picture so I didn't have to pay for it. And he could have said no. And he kind of looked at me like, oh, you're pulling a fast one. But he was like, yeah, man, make it quick before other people find out. And I was like, Good. You knew I was being a
No.
punk, and he still was
No,
like,
Bret's always
yeah,
been
dude.
like that. He's always one that always gives back to the fans.
Yeah. He
Like,
even
there
told the
was,
security guard, I was like, get off. Like, we're taking a picture.
yeah. No, he's like he definitely gives back to the fans, and like if he's at a signing, he'll go 2 hours over just to make sure everybody in that line gets their autograph signed. And like it's definitely a redeeming quality. Like when he took that moniker of being like the hometown hero, he took it very seriously, and I appreciate his, I guess, like consistency and staying in character, or just being just a really nice guy that happened to also be a stand-up guy in character also. But he lives on TV and in real life. Like he's super cool. Like there's never been a story where I've heard Bret Hart have a bad time with a fan. Now Goldberg's foot, on the other hand, that's a whole different story. But that's always been one thing I've always noticed when people talk about him, and that's pretty cool. You don't hear a lot of wrestlers have that same kind of reputation after a while,
Yeah, CM Punk.
When, we're gonna get into that story someday. I'm sure
We'll keep teasing it until then.
Yeah. So with Austin and the Hart stuff and everything, how far are we either removed or going into the incident with Owen and Austin?
It's next on the list of his storyline. So looking back at this, it was Bret Hart went into his match with the Undertaker. Stone Cold went into his feud with Owen at this time, and that's when they had the match where he broke his neck. Like I think it was like 2 or 3 months later, and that hung up Stone Cold on the shelf for a while. But it's coming soon in the near present future.
Yeah, I was gonna say Austin is moving really different than he did later on. His mannerisms, his body language, the way he moved and turned was a lot different than it ended up.
Had been, I mean, because it's like he did when he does say like in interviews he came back, he wrestled a little bit more protected because of his neck.
Right.
It was always just like when he came back, it was just not if it happened, but when it happened, that his neck became a bigger issue and a liability in the ring. And so you definitely tell that, but like I didn't realize it till you made mention to it as you watching it. In this match, you do see him move a lot differently. But it's still athletic as fuck. Yeah.
George, I feel like we keep leaving George out with these.
No, I'm listening, but you guys have these I guess different connections. I don't know, man. I go back to like from what I remember, and it's like I liked Owen Hart a lot. Like I remember playing him on like the video games, maybe even more than I did Bret Hart. I liked him a lot until he turned into the blue whatever it was.
He went back to the Blue Blazer.
Yeah. I never liked that part of it, but I was a huge Owen Hart fan. I love the British Bulldog. Jim, I don't think I was like that much into like Neidhart, Jimmy Anvil Neidhart, or whatever his name. Natty's dad. I was never connected to him, but I think this is why I was going for the Hart Foundation in this situation was because I was like a fan of Owen. I was a fan of the British Bulldog, and then right now, I didn't know back then, so I wouldn't have known. But Pillman, Cincinnati Bengals, baby, who dare?
Well, and it was weird. I thought in the middle of this match, they actually bring up Goldust being Dusty Rhodes' dad, and I thought that was interesting. I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna give Dusty kind of a random shout out, in that moment, which I thought was cool. But in this match, it made me realize how great JR is when the crowd is in it with him. Like, the crowd is getting fired up in this match.
Yeah.
And JR gets fired up with him.
He matches that energy that's being spat out. Even though he knows that they can't hear him, he knows that the crowd can be heard on TV, and so he matches that energy to make it even more of a palpable situation and moment. He's good for that. Like, I always love JR for that. It's like he's always going to be one of those that when you hear, like, you see specific moments and you know that there is JR in the background somewhere hyping it up, and it just makes the moment even better. Like, it gives you chills to a certain extent. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, even in playing video games, like playing WWE 2K20, whatever, 23. Like, whenever we do something crazy in the video game, I'm like, God, he's dead.
Oh, man. So, overall, the match I thought the match was pretty good. The one big takeaway, or there's like three big takeaways I take away from this match. One, for the bigger guys that were in this match, LOD, Jim Anvil, Neidhart, those big motherfuckers can go. And, like, knowing, like, the type of lifestyle they lived before and after the show, like, on the road, always partying, like, it was like the rough lifestyle they had, to see them still be able to perform at that level, because, like, that whole match was exhausting. If you, like, I'm looking at it and I get halfway exhausted as the athletic part of me takes over, but, like, they could go and they could perform, and they do that night in and night out. Like, I expect the athleticism from Bret, from Owen, from Ken, like, they're built for that, right? But, like, these motherfuckers are plus 300 pounds each, and they are still moving like they're just like middleweights. And it's interesting to see how they can still be able to go like that. And so that was fun. That was entertaining. And then the other big thing was, and I was talking to my brother-in-law about this while we were watching the match, is like, you look at the ring, 60% of the wrestlers in that ring are dead now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
Yes, I thought about that, and I told Allison we were watching it, and I was like, yeah, the majority of these guys are dead now. She's like, what?
Yeah.
You know what?
But to even sprinkle on top of that, like, it was like, okay, like, due to causes of certain events, like, some of them had longer careers in the tooth than other ones, right? Because we already know how Owen passed. We already know Brian Pillman his days are numbered at this point, because it's not even at the end of the year that he dies. And so, like, I was thinking about it as, like, we got to see LOD have a couple more runs in different, not only WWE, but in different federations too. But, like, even Davey Boy Smith had a second breath in, like, WCW. And then, like, same thing with Anvil. He was like, he was a mid-carder, but he was kind of there, kind of not. But, like, what could have been of, like, Owen Hart and a Brian Pillman if they would have had fuller careers, right? Especially Owen, because he was the only one technically locked into his contract at the time after the whole Montreal screw job. And so, you know, he had, like, all these wrestlers that came up that were, like, right as he died, there was a shift in, like, people coming over from WCW, like the Radicals, like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn. They could have these really cool matches with Edge, who, like, trained with Owen Hart, and, like, they were, like, running buddies behind the scenes and stuff, like, and you start doing a lot of fantasy booking at that point of, like, what could have been. Brian, he was kind of off the rails anyways, but, like, when he wrestled and had good storylines, he was amazing in the ring. He was great on the microphone, whether he was in WCW or WWE. You know, that's why he was around for the Hart Foundation. He didn't really wrestle a lot because he was injured, but when he was there, you know, I remember the whole Austin 316 meets Pillman 9mm Glock segment on Raw. And so, and all this crazy like little events, yeah. And so, like you get to thinking what it could have been and what we could have had, especially with those two good talents on the roster at the time.
I feel like I've said everything, man.
You know,
Like, I like how things kept breaking down. Like it never went back, or it never was. It started like a full tag team, and then it just kept destroying itself, and then which led to the very end where everything just went crazy. And
the end was
the
good.
ending was
it
weird.
Was perfect.
It was good, but it was weird. Like it was like, or at least to me, it felt all of a sudden.
Yeah,
but it was good.
But just shit. I mean, for what it turned out to be and breaking down like that, like it was a shit heel way to end the match because at the end of the day, regardless of if you're in Canada or America watching it, like the storyline is the Hart Foundation are the heels, so they're going to do something dirty to win, or they're going to find a dirty roll up pin to win it and get out of there. But it just happened to be in Canada while we were doing this.
Hey, did y'all see in the crowd there was a sign that said Taka is God?
No.
I thought that was
I have to go back and look at it again.
But you know what? I like,
dude. How crazy would it have gotten if Stone Cold and the American team would have won? Like, you think it would have riot?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think so. But you know what? There was a moment where I saw they went through the Spanish announcers table. Thought about George, and I was like, Spanish table aquí.
Estamos. Dude, those tables look like they were just like those white foldable tables that you just put out at barbecues. Like, hey, just sit right here.
Man, but there was a spot where there was an Irish whip into the turnbuckle, and Bret Hart went chest first. And I know he was known for doing that, and he could do it well. But damn it sounded like his fucking chest just crunched.
That's the art of a heart right there, Art.
But
hey, when everything finally breaks down and people start jumping in, like the family, was it all family or like some random fans jumped into or no?
No, it's all family, bro.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's actually
because the way it looks,
just
real quick, like the way it looks like, yeah, there's so much confusion. Like people jumped in, and maybe it was planned, but then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, and then they start backing off randomly. Like they stopped going on with what the story or what.
Yeah, no, I actually have that we're going to talk about. But before that, JR going against Stone Cold was weird. Like hearing him try to make Stone Cold the villain in this, the heel, was really weird. He wasn't, I don't know. To me, it was weird.
But I was saying, but no, I mean, like, it's one of those that you have to, like, when you're watching it, yeah, it is weird to hear, but then you realize how far they've come from that point. Like, you forget, like, you, of course, you have the reflection of being an adult watching this again or for the first time, and you forget, like when you're a kid, you don't pay attention to story beats in the same way that you do as you listen to them with the same reference points as an adult, right? So for as kids, we were like, oh man, this is just the Hart Foundation versus a bunch of random wrestlers put together, including Stone Cold Steve Austin. But like now we've lived through it, and now we get to go back and look at it through a different lens. And so it's kind of interesting to look at it that way and have more fun with it, right? And so that was one thing I did notice in this match. But like, it's one of those, like, if JR was playing his role at the time, and like commentary across the board was phenomenal for this match. Except for, like, Vince McMahon sucks as an announcer. I'm just gonna be That's a hot take, but like he has like 6 or 7 like sound effects that he'll make when he's lost and trying to come up with words. And then when he does come up with words, it just sounds like a circus act and trying to hype up the circus act, which is fine. Like,
He wasn't bad.
he wasn't that bad at this point, but I've listened to him in the past again, looking at some of our other shows, and then also doing like just looking at random matches. I'm like, oh man, this is pretty decent, but not that great as an announcer. Like it was good as a buffer between King and JR, but there you could tell there was a time where he just needed to cycle off of being part of that announce team, and I guess it was kind of good that he ended up becoming his own character instead of staying on the announce team.
Oh yeah,
because that 3-man announce team would have sucked if it was him involved in that for any longer during the Attitude Era.
Oh,
so
yeah, no, it's not. Vince is not somebody that I would like put on commentary, but
yeah,
even bad.
Yeah, but George, going to your point though, with the crowd interaction, like I was telling you off camera, so in the Wrestling with Shadows documentary, they actually break down that specific part of the match with, I think Pat Patterson produced this backstage, and so there's a point where they talk about the way that the match is going to lead up and how they get the family involved because. It's always one of those running jokes. It was like Bret Hart, if he talks about his brothers being in the show somewhere or being at the show, they always try to find a way to be in the show. And so this is kind of their way of segueing them into the show without segueing them into the show. And so I'll send you the link for it, but like they'll talk about it and break it down. It's really interesting to make sure that everybody gets a piece of like some TV time. Yeah. And so Smith was there. Smith Hart was there to kind of set the tone to make sure we started rounding up or rounding the end of the show up to where we got to the final end of where the match ended up with the whole melee of the family and stuff. Even Stu Hart got some licks in, which was cool. I thought that was kind of awesome.
With that, we're going to take one more commercial break before we come back to give our final thoughts on the show. So we will see y'all here in just a couple of minutes. Whoop, whoop.
Hey, Too Hard, Too Fast podcast, a lighthearted, thought-provoking comedic podcast where we talk about society and culture topics through the lives and experiences of my guests. But that's what it says on paper. The important thing to remember is that Too Hard, Too Fast, we don't check facts. Something you can check is for Too Hard, Too Fast podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and any other podcast platform that you use or don't use. Use them all. Watch us all on all of it.
So it was kind of weird watching this match, watching JR kind of go against Stone Cold from our remembrance of how JR was always with Steve Austin. So with everything going on, I really enjoyed the match. But Bruce Hart kept kind of fucking shit up. I don't know. and then like
and that's why he's in the crowd and not in the ring.
He kept falling. He was on the ground. He kept falling down for shit.
Yeah. Even Stu Hart's spot was better than anything he did.
And you know, the thing that cracked me up the most is so everybody's fighting in the ring, right? And then all the security comes in and I'm looking at them like, why are a bunch of airline pilots like in the ring fighting with people? This doesn't make sense. Like, oh, that's security. Okay, they dress them like airline pilots. Cool.
I was waiting for the Mountie to come out there in some way, shape, or form and try to break it up.
I mean, it was, you know, the ending of the match was fine. It was cool. I don't know, man. It was a weird. I was expecting more when I started it, but I got more out of it than I really thought, but you can't have Canadian Stampede and then expect the Hart family to lose, right?
Yeah. You'd be dumb to assume. Like, it's one thing to be like, yeah, they're gonna lose, but like they're the hometown heroes. It was built for them to win. Like, family, Stu Hart and Mama Hart is sitting there in the audience. All the Hart family is there. Like, it's built and programmed around them winning. Like, it's kind of like one of those that you don't see this going any other way. And if it goes any other way, you're not in Canada, if that's the case.
Or imagine it goes that way and the American team wins, and everybody gets riled up. The crowd's getting crazy because they're already throwing shit anyways, and so then they beat up, like they go, we're not okay with this, and then the Hart Foundation starts breaking through the thing, and then the barricade, and they start beating up the Americans. That would be pretty badass too.
Yeah, that's a different way to look at it. I would say that would work, but if they did that, it wouldn't be on one of the B-list pay-per-views. It would be like on a Big Four type of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and give our ratings for the 10-man tag match. I'm going to go ahead and let Lathan.
4 stars.
Oh.
Well, so for context reasons. So, like, it's a 4-star match. First of all, athleticism across the board is phenomenal. For me, I think going into it, I had more of a nostalgic lens on understanding the programming of the show or of the match, how it was supposed to be broken down. As they got to the end of the match and stuff, from watching Wrestling with Shadows at such a young age and enjoying, I go back and watch it every once in a while. And this is one of those things I remember nostalgically, putting the two together and seeing how, like, it kind of crescendo Bret Hart's exit from the company. But like the athleticism from everybody involved in the match is really awesome. Like, even Goldust, for what it's worth. Like, I remember Goldust kind of being a little bit more frumpier and dumpier as the Attitude Era went along, and I forgot Goldust was ultra athletic in this particular version of himself, right? And so, like, it was cool to see that, and so, like, yeah, so I enjoyed the match for what the match was, and then all the behind the scenes stuff that went into it. So I went into it remembering all of that, and then watching it full on, and I was like, this is a great match. Like, it's entertaining. It served its purpose. Who won in the right time, and Canada kind of made it even more over with the crowd. So yeah, so I just had to give it a 4-star.
Thanks. Okay. George, what you got?
I'll say it this way. When we recorded with the WCW Goldberg Hogan thing, Jen, my wife, she told me, she said, it's like you were so lively on it. Like, you were like all in hardcore, like just stupid on it. That was because it was nostalgia. It was something I watched and I knew what I was talking about. So I was all in, like I knew, right? So, but because it was an episode that came out on TV that I watched. So when we talk about pay-per-views, I have like a really good privilege of like watching it as nostalgia, because I know all the the wrestlers from but also watching it for the first time. Like, it's a unique kind of thing that I'm getting to experience. So I'm giving this actually a 4.4, because I really enjoyed how chaotic everything was, and I was watching it as a first timer, but also knowing the wrestlers.
Here comes hating ass Art, gonna give it a 2.37.
This was bullshit.
So this match, because of how chaotic it was and all the shit, everything that happened, I give it a 1.86.
Wow, nah, you're just being a dick now.
Maybe.
Oh,
Maybe so. There wasn't.
Just say you hate Canada. Go ahead and say it. It's fine.
Well, yeah. Except Natalia.
Sure,
No,
a real cowboy.
Yeah. No, there was, it was so, to me, it was so chaotic with stuff, and the whole, like, oh, with Owen with the chair, and then Stone Cold with the chair, and they're gonna take him out. There was just too much gaga for the whole thing, and it's like, why are we? You could just have a straight match, have a good match, and be done with it. It's not. We don't need that shit. So yeah, I with LOD, they're not going to give you a 5-star match. Yeah, I gave it kind of well, not kind of. I gave it a 1.86 on that. What rating do y'all give this pay-per-view overall?
Give it a B plus.
No, I need a number.
Numerical.
I say 3.75 stars, 3.75. Yeah, that says. I mean, listen, it was enough matches with enough time to let each match breathe, tell its story, have some fun with it, and get involved and get immersed in it, and then give it its conclusions and move on, right? And so anything like it was perfectly paced, perfectly timed. Some things didn't make sense on paper and application, it made some more sense, but then overall you were easily entertained. It hit all of its beats, and so it was fine. It wasn't it wasn't a Survivor Series, it wasn't a Royal Rumble, it wasn't a WrestleMania, but it still kept you entertained for what it was. And it went in, did its job, and got out. So solid performance across the board.
Nice. Okay. George, what you got?
I want to put it in the 4s, but that Undertaker Vader match, yeah, it's gonna be a 3.8. Yeah. I enjoyed all of the matches except for that one. I was fully invested in all of them except for that one. Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. Didn't know what in your house was, didn't know what to expect, and then I was like, oh dang, this is good stuff. I think I even texted you guys right after. I don't remember if I did, but I was like, this stuff is good.
George, real quick, I want you to look at my name.
Too hard, too fast. What the? Vámonos. Oh, too hard. Oh, nice. Nice.
So I gave this entire show a 2.8775.
Hater.
Dang.
Well, that was actually just the average of all the matches divided by whatever. No,
Nerd.
I really liked this pay-per-view, and I remember as a kid going over to my buddy Ernie's house, watching this with him, and it brought up a bunch of nostalgic feelings and everything, but I don't know if I'm more cynical now being an adult watching it and everything. I mean, I don't know, but I'm not gonna mark it down. It was good. It was good. It's not the best, but it was good. So with that, we are about to spin the wheel, and we're gonna spin the wheel. Here we go. Spin it. Let's see what we got coming up next month. We have SummerSlam 1992. We're going to watch that and give our ratings. So I would
I didn't
expect.
see no wheel spin. I feel like you just picked it because you already had it.
No, I spend it. I spend it. I expect George to be in a tank top for that because he kept asking for a damn SummerSlam.
Oh yeah. I'm ready for SummerSlam. Bow, bow, bow. Oh, you can't see it.
So, hey, guys, Lathan, George, thank y'all so much. Love you guys.
The best there is, the best there was, the best that ever will be.
Who's that nerdy motherfucker next to Bret Hart?
I don't know who that is. That boy thick.
Who's that skinny kid?
Thick boy Slim over there.
Guys, thank y'all for being here. Thank everybody who's listening, who's watching. Again, we do this because we really love pro wrestling. We love doing this. We enjoy doing this. Y'all have a great night and great day, whatever it is. And
Hey, Paul Bear got his morticianary from San Antonio College, baby.
there it is.
Oh, fun fact of the night.
Thank you, Duckers, for coming back. We'll see y'all next month for the next show. Have a good night.